The old town of Ravenswood was known for its dense, haunting fog that rolled in every night, swallowing the streets and transforming familiar paths into eerie labyrinth. Nestled at the edge of this forsaken town was the centuries-old Whittaker Mansion, a grand structure with a dark history. Abandoned for decades, it stood as a grim sentinel, its broken windows like soulless eyes watching over the town's secrets. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones about the mansion, recounting tales of the Whittaker family who mysteriously disappeared one stormy night. Some said they were cursed, others believed they had crossed into another realm. All agreed on one thing: the mansion was haunted. On a particularly foggy night, a group of teenagers, driven by bravado and a thirst for adventure, decided to explore the mansion. Emily, the ringleader, had always been fascinated by the macabre. With her were her best friends, Jack and Sarah, and her younger brother, Tom, who was eager to prove himself. "Are you sure about this, Emily?" Jack asked, his voice wavering as they stood at the rusted gates of the mansion. "Absolutely," Emily replied, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "We need to document this for our YouTube channel. Just imagine the views." They pushed open the creaking gate and made their way up the overgrown path to the mansion's entrance. Front door, barely hanging on its hinges, groaned as they pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and mold. Moonlight streamed through the shattered windows, casting ghostly shadows on the walls. Armed with flashlights and cameras, they stepped inside. Floorboards creaked under their weight, and every sound seemed amplified in the oppressive silence. They moved cautiously through the grand foyer, their lights revealing cobweb-covered portraits of the Whittaker family. The eyes in the paintings seemed to follow them, adding to the growing unease. "Let's split up," Emily suggested, trying to keep her voice steady. "We'll cover more ground that way." Reluctantly, they agreed. Emily and Tom headed upstairs, while Jack and Sarah explored the ground floor. As Emily and Tom ascended the grand staircase, they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The temperature dropped noticeably, and a chill ran down their spines. Reaching the second floor, they found a long hallway lined with doors. "Let's check the rooms one by one," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. They opened the first door to reveal a dusty library. Shelves filled with ancient, leather-bound books lined the walls. Tom approached a desk in the center of the room and picked up a yellowed journal. As he opened it, a cold draft swept through the room, extinguishing their flashlight beams for a moment. "Emily, look at this," Tom said, his voice trembling. Emily peered over his shoulder, reading the journal's entries. They detailed strange occurrences, whispers in the night, and sightings of shadowy figures. The final entry ended abruptly. "They're here. God help us." Meanwhile, Jack and Sarah explored the kitchen, where remnants of a long-forgotten meal rotted on the table. Suddenly, they heard a soft, rhythmic tapping. They followed the sound to a small, locked door under the stairs. Tapping grew louder, more insistent. "You hear that?" Sarah asked, her eyes wide with fear. "Yeah," Jack replied, his voice tight, "but we need to know what's behind that door." They found a rusty key hanging on the wall and unlocked the door. It creaked open to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. Summoning their courage, they descended into the basement. The basement was a chilling maze of stone walls and dirt floors. The air was damp and smelled of earth and something metallic. Their flashlights flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own. "Let's get this over with," Jack muttered, trying to steady his nerves. As they moved deeper into the basement, they found an old wooden chest. Tapping had stopped, but an oppressive silence hung in the air. Jack knelt and opened the chest, revealing a collection of old toys, photographs, and a music box. He wound the music box, and a haunting melody filled the room. Back upstairs, Emily and Tom were startled by the sudden sound of the music box. They rushed downstairs, their footsteps echoing through the empty mansion. Reuniting with Jack and Sarah, they followed the music to the basement. "What did you find?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. Jack held up the music box. "This, and more. Look at these photographs." The photographs depicted the Whittaker family. There were also images of shadowy figures lurking in the background. As they examined the photos, the temperature in the room plummeted, and their breath formed visible clouds. Suddenly, the music box stopped playing and the basement door slammed shut. The lights flickered, and the shadows seemed to come alive, swirling around them. "We need to get out of here," Sarah cried, panic rising in her voice. They raced up the stairs, but the door wouldn't budge. The mansion seemed to be alive, trapping them within its walls. The shadows grew more aggressive, whispering unintelligible words that filled their minds with dread. Tom stumbled, and Emily grabbed his arm, pulling him to his feet. "Come on, we can't stop now." As they fought to open the door, a cold, ghostly hand touched Emily's shoulder. She screamed, and the others turned to see a figure emerging from the darkness. It was a woman, her face pale and eyes hollow, dressed in a tattered gown. "Leave this place or suffer their fate," the apparition whispered, her voice echoing through the room. The final, desperate push, they managed to open the door and burst out of the basement. They fled the mansion. Boom. With a final, desperate push, they managed to open the door and burst out of the basement. They fled the mansion, not stopping until they reached the safety of the town's main street. Panting and terrified, they looked back at the looming structure. Did you see her?" Tom asked, his voice quivering. "Yes," Emily replied, her face pale. "And I believe her. We were lucky to get out alive." They never spoke of their encounter again, but the experience haunted them for the rest of their lives. Ravenswood's fog seemed thicker, the nights darker, and the whispers in the dark more sinister. The Whittaker Mansion still stands, chilling reminder of the town's dark past. And if you listen closely on a foggy night, you might hear the whispers too, echoes of the damned, warning those who dare to disturb the restless spirits that dwell within.